This is a Crib Room podcast,
bringing you industry news, views, and happenings.
Welcome along to a Crib Room podcast where we are on the road today, and we're joined by Kam Leung from Lynas to tell us further details about what's happening with Lynas and their cracking and leaching facility, their further developments in Kalgoorlie, Boulder and more. Kam is the VP Upstream at Lynas Corporation. We step into his Crib Room today. Kam, a very good afternoon to you and welcome along.
Thanks, Glennie. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, we appreciate the time you've taken to catch up with us, but first of all, it's been a big journey for Lynas over the last couple of years, hasn't it?
Yeah, we've come from basically a junior sort of company, starting up a very, very difficult process in terms of being able to produce separated rare earth products.
Now, we've got the Kalgoorlie project coming online, which is why we've got a pop-up shop in the middle of Hannan St in Kalgoorlie, but also at the same time, we've got a lot of other things that are going on for you and for business as well. Can you first of all explain a bit more about the move of Lynas, of its cracking and leaching facility, that's what you've called it,
Yes.
out of Malaysia to Australia?
Yeah. In Australia, in Mount Weld, we actually mine and actually process the ore to produce the concentrate. So we've been doing that since 2011, and then since late 2012, we've been running our operations in Malaysia, where we actually basically crack that rare earth concentrate, get it into solution, separate out the rare earths, and then produce some sort of refined separated rare earth products. So we've been looking, in a couple of years ago, we looked to wanted to expand our cracking and leaching capacity. We wanted to do it somewhere closer to our origins in terms of the mine site. So we were looking for a place to actually do that. As it turned out, the change in our sort of license conditions in Malaysia basically meant instead of doing it as expansion, it actually became replacement capacity as well. So when we actually announced our strategy to actually do it back in May 2019, shortly afterwards, the city of Kalgoorlie, Boulder actually said, come to Kalgoorlie, this is the place to do it, and we'll offer you a range of things, including industrial land, including things like water, which is very important for our process. Kalgoorlie seems to be a very logical choice for us. It's got the skilled workforce, it's got a good support industry, it's got all the sort of services that we actually need for a complex sort of plant like our cracking and leaching plant.
Now, what is the future for that Malaysian facility as well?
So the Malaysian facility is actually I think it's the single largest rare earth processing facility of its type. We're only talking about sort of just the cracking and leaching is only the first stage of it. So when we actually get into full operation in middle of 2023, we'll actually directly feed that plant from Kalgoorlie. So there's over 900 solvent extraction stages. There's a lot of equipment, a lot of complex processing that happens in the Malaysian plant there.
So just tell us about operating in 3 countries as well, because there's your Malaysian facility, there's Australia, as you mentioned, with Mount Weld and what will be in Kalgoorlie, Boulder, but then also in the US too. There's some plans for the US?
Yeah, certainly. It's at the planning stage. So we've been working for a number of years with the US government, in particular the Department of Defence. So initially looking at heavy rare earth separation. So that's something that's sort of very low quantities that it's actually produced in, but very, very critical for a number of uses there. So we've been looking to do that with heavy rare earths with the Department of Defence for a number of years. And then in more recent times, the US Department of Defence were actually looking at light rare earths. So they've actually basically approved to support us looking at the light rare earths, and we're still working with them on the heavy rare earths. So for us, we'd actually like to do both of those together. So there's a little bit more work there to do before we can actually proceed with that project, but that'll be a big step, and we would look to actually directly feed that actually from Kalgoorlie, the light rare earth separation.
Let's talk about where it all comes from in Mount Weld first of all. What's on site for you at Mount Weld in terms of resource and infrastructure?
Yeah, so Mount Weld, the deposit's actually in what was an old volcano. So if you think of a volcanic pipe that was there about 3 kilometres in diameter. So we've been mining and processing some of the oxidised and rich zone near the surface. So we've I think had a 25-year sort of ore reserve in that oxidised and rich zone. But in recent times, I think last November, we actually announced that we'd punched some holes deeper down, actually below that oxidised and rich zone into what was the primary mineralisation. So we actually had like 100 metres of continuous rare earth mineralisation, actually got our guys very, very excited. So we recently have been drilling, putting down a kilometre diamond drill hole, and very much looking forward to the results of that. So implications are, we could be in operations for a very, very long time. So we have the mine there. Because it's high grade, we actually don't mine full time. We actually mine and stockpile and then actually process that stockpile. So we've been using a local sort of Kalgoorlie-based mining contractor to actually do that work for us. And we have a concentration plant. It's a flotation plant based out at Mount Weld, and that basically upgrades that ore into a rare earth concentrate.
So the potential for that Lynas site is pretty enormous, but some goals for you as well is obviously this Kalgoorlie rare earths processing facility to be operating by July 2030. That's going to have potentially... 2023, sorry. By 2023, with the Kalgoorlie facility producing mixed rare earth carbonate and also the ability to process from third-party resources, as well as the Kalgoorlie facility being able to do feed to downstream operations in Malaysia you touched on, and well-progressed development of the US rare earth facility. Here we are to talk a little bit about how that project is coming along here in Kalgoorlie Boulder, 2023. There's already been fencing that's gone up from local contractors. There's been some of the tanks which have been announced through Polaris Engineering, who are doing some construction for you in Western Australia. Just tell us a little bit about where we're at and a bit of an update on that project right now.
Yeah, so we're working in parallels on a number of streams on this project. We've done a lot of the high-level sort of process design, high-level engineering actually in-house with our Lynas team, and then working with a number of companies now to do the detailed design. So we're just kicking off a lot into our detailed design. We've been procured most of the specialised process equipment actually for the project, so including the kiln, which we placed an order for last July. So the manufacture of that is actually very well advanced. So that's going to be a very, very large piece of equipment. It's 6 metres in diameter and 110 metres long.
I was just about to say, that kiln, I remember when the announcement came out, it's going to be the longest kiln in the world, or the Southern Hemisphere?
I don't think it's going to be the longest. There's actually kilns longer than that, but in terms of the overall size, I believe it's going to be one of the largest, if not the largest in Australia there.
And you transport it in stages, surely.
Yes.
You wouldn't get that upgrade Eastern Goat Track.
It's going to come in 5 major sort of sections for the kiln shell itself, and then it'll be actually assembled, aligned on site, and actually then welded up. So it'll be quite spectacular when it's actually pulled together. So that's that part in terms of the procurement there. We've been well advanced in our approval process, so we had to go through approval process with both the federal government, which we've sort of cleared, and we're just about to enter the 4-week public review period for the EPA approval. And that's about to kick off next week, and that's the reason why we've actually set up shop here in Kalgoorlie on St Barbara Squares, where members of the community can actually come in and actually see the study, see the work, find out about the project.
Well, hopefully we answer some questions as well about the facility for people as well as we continue through this podcast. But some of the transport options, because you've got road from Laverton. From Laverton it'll be trucked into Cal, will it?
That seems to be the most likely option there. So currently we're actually trucking to Leonora and actually railing all the way to Fremantle. So our route's probably is most likely going to be, we'll probably truck down from Cal, but the product will actually be railed to Fremantle Port from Kalgoorlie.
And there's some facilities for you close by there too, isn't there, with the rail ability here in Kalgoorlie Boulder?
Yes, so there's facilities in West Kalgoorlie there.
Tell us about the topic of radioactivity. I know it's been mentioned, and I know that you've provided some clarification. There's been some concerns about that, but the studies and all of the information that are available for people here, it's very transparent, and you're very open about the fact that there is a product here that has a very, very low level, but this is not uncommon to the types of rare earths.
Yeah, so what we're talking about is what we call norm, so it's naturally occurring radioactive material. There's a lot of things in our lives that actually We get radiation, it's just part of our lives. A lot of people actually unaware about things, so I think the best thing for us actually with the shop is we can actually talk to people about it, actually show demonstrations to say, yes, it is radioactive, but it's actually safe.
Now, the other thing that's important for the Kalgoorlie facility, not only the community, and we sort of touched on it before, is the amount of local content and Kalgoorlie content. That's been something that Lynas have prided yourselves on when it comes to securing contracts and tenders, isn't it?
Yeah, so we're certainly committed to buy local, and we've tried to do things to break up some of our packages, so some of the local sort of companies can, it's within their scope, and look forward to, we've had quite a number of the jobs so far on site have actually been done by local contractors, and look forward to a reasonable amount of local content actually during the project there.
Now, Cam, talk us through what happens once that ore or that product reaches the Kalgoorlie facility, and what will happen to it out there.
So we'll actually bring down a concentrate, so it's already been sort of processed once and upgraded at the Mount Weld site. So that concentrate, we're going to mix it with concentrated sulfuric acid, and then basically pump that actually into our kiln. So basically it'll be a high temperature, what we call a high temperature acid bake, and that'll convert it from a rare earth phosphate to a rare earth sulfate, which is then literally soluble in water. So we'll actually dissolve it in water, so the rare earths go into solution. We'll actually neutralise that with magnesia, which actually means the iron, the phosphate actually precipitates out, and that will make an iron phosphate sort of byproduct. The rare earths are actually in solution, and then we'll basically precipitate that out as a rare earth carbonate, which we can basically dewater and then package up and then send that to Malaysia, to our Malaysian plant for treatment.
So there's a lot that happens on site, isn't there, as part of that process? There's baking, there's putting things into solution, taking them out.
Yeah, so it's a proven process. We've actually been running this process in Malaysia since the end of 2012, and we've done a lot of improvements on that circuit, and we've actually incorporated those plus a few extras into the new design that we've actually got for Kalgoorlie.
The Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, stated publicly that construction of the Kalgoorlie facility in particular, which would feed into your proposed US facility, is a gold standard example of the cooperation of critical supply chains between Australia and the US. Now, this is pretty impressive, with those processes being looked upon favourably by the federal government.
Yeah, so we've actually had very, very good support from all levels of government in Australia, with the federal government, the state government and local government. As we mentioned earlier, the US government is actually very, very supportive, and it's very, very good to see governmental support for the supply chain, critical mineral supply chain, such as ours.
Cam, what sort of future reliance on rare earths does the world have? Where are we going to see the rare earths being put into use after they've come from Kalgoorlie and Mount Weld?
I think even today, rare earths are a critical part of our lives. They support the sort of transport industries for us, the sort of digital technologies that we use, the renewable energies like wind turbines, and even things like sort of automation and sort of robotics and things like that. So all things that have become more and more important in our modern lives, and especially as we go to a more sort of carbon neutral lifestyle.
Just out of frame on the camera for our podcast as well today is the environmental review document. If you've got a few months, you can review that particular product, but you can also get a shortened version, Cam. You've got some different things here for residents to come and find out a bit more, from the byproduct storage capping design and the social surrounds for noise, environmental social impact water, and the commitment to the community. You know, this is something that you've worked long and hard on to get this facility here in Kalgoorlie Boulder, but also ensure that it's done with the community interests in mind.
Yes, so I think one thing you should be take comfort in is I think our government agencies are very rigorous in terms of the level of scientific sort of studies that we actually need for new projects, and in our shops today and then for the next few weeks you can actually see the type of work that we actually have to do to actually make sure that our processes are safe.
Yeah, I tell you what, if it was easy, mate, everyone would be doing it, but it's not. It's a very complicated process, all because of the stringent governance that's around to ensure that you are doing the right thing and that the community is doing the right thing at the same time. And I think that needs to be applauded from you guys as well at Lynas, because I know that having this facility here in Kalgoorlie Boulder is also attracting other interest as well in terms of industrial land use. So it's great.
Okay, thank you very much.
Just before we do go with Cam, and we almost wrapped up our conversation just then, Cam, we're running a conjunction with the Miners Rest Motel here in Kalgoorlie Boulder in regards to making the first ever podcast burger. So whenever there's a burger that you're out and about there, if you're looking at something that you've got to consume on a Friday night when you want to make dinner easy, what's an ingredient that needs to go into that burger?
Meat. I love a good raw steak, not raw, or blue steak.
A blue steak into the burger?
Blue steak.
We'll put that as one of the options.
Okay.
Good on you, my friend. Thanks for joining us on our podcast.
The Crib Room series of podcasts are produced by Industry Link Media. Subscribe to podcasts via your audio platform and via industrylinkmedia.com. This is a Crib Room podcast.